I'm usually here till 4:30, 5 o'clock because I like to get my records in order while it's all still fresh in my mind. I find if I leave it a day or two, I'm then struggling.
The planning for the lessons we have to do is working with the teacher, either to have a conversation before the next lesson, or we get given a yellow sheet with all the description on of what the lesson will be about, who we'll be working with, and what the teachers think might be difficult for that student.
If you've got a child that needs graphs doing or special tables preparing, then you can prepare those before you actually go into the lesson, and that makes the lesson easier for them. They don't get behind then.
So, how do teaching assistants organise their support for pupils across the whole curriculum in a school like Earls High? It's all about planning.
I feel it's very important that the teaching assistant is fully aware of what the lesson content is going to be and exactly what their role is going to be in that lesson. On the first day back in September, all staff received the timetable of support that they're going to be getting for the next academic year, and it's stated which teaching assistants are going to be in their lessons. And we also give some quite detailed information at that point on what the role of the teacher is in supporting the teaching assistant.
Well, I just normally in for 8 o'clock in the morning. You have to check pigeonholes for information from teachers. And I like to spend some time just by myself, sitting down, familiarising myself with what we'll be doing, making sure I've got all the resources that I need. There's a lot of information on there, but I like to read through it and then make notes of my own so that I can remember it as well. You're working with pupils whose minds are a lot more agile than mine now, so it's important for me that I've got my finger on the pulse and I know what's happening. So yes, we'll do planning. I may do it after school or at night, at home. My other half is a teacher, so we both sit there boarding each other. No, we both sit there doing planning together quite often.
How many did I say you were going to try and do? 5 or more, that's right, okay.
When we come in the morning, we have a set plan of lessons and set students. So we go into each lesson and help, and then if there's work that needs to be done otherwise, we'll take up break times or lunch times or after school to get that student in or a group of students in and work through it.
If I explain that it's 1 metre divided by the time, and then we get the speed in metres per second, okay.
The planning for the lessons we have to do is working with the teacher, either to have a conversation before the next lesson, or we get given a yellow sheet with all the description on of what the lesson will be about, who we'll be working with, and what the teachers think might be difficult for that student.
The teaching assistant's planning folder is their Bible. It's for pupil records and, of course, those yellow sheets.
I've had a lot of support from the other teaching assistants in the group, especially when I first came into the job, because of how our folders have to be set out and everything we have to have. You will get 1 or 2 of them sitting down with you and going through everything and explaining everything you have to do in the job, and then taking you to the photocopy and helping you get all your folders together, and of course bringing you tea and biscuits as well, just to make you feel welcome.
If you listen to the discussion in the staff room first thing in the morning, they're all deciding how they can best support each other and support the students. Often, teaching assistants are here at 8 o'clock in the morning. Some of them don't leave until 4:30, 5 o'clock, sometimes even later.
Sometimes at dinner times you have some photocopying or something you might have to do if the student needs the work enlarged. So you'd get that done for the next lesson, so you're prepared for every lesson that you go into. The curriculum is quite difficult to get your head around, to understand when you're constantly in and out of lessons.
Did you get some pictures of old Harry from the computer?
No, I ain't got pictures, but I've got...
You've got your flip chart?
I think it helps with me being young, because it's been a few years, but it's not been that many years since I've been out of school, and out of education, so it's quite easy to be swapped from one thing to the other. And Working with Year 8s and Year 9s, it's still at quite a basic level.
I think at the moment I'm very lucky that the teachers I work with are appreciative of why I'm in there, because of the pupils that I'm with.
So were there any tables at all that really couldn't get started? Or?
No, they were pretty good. They seemed to know what they were doing. The problem they had was when we came to representation of the football.
The ideas that get planned for the lessons are often shared. We discuss them, and if Chris has got an idea as to how we can achieve success with the student she's working with, then obviously that's a massive bonus to me to sort of have her working alongside there. So if we give them sugar paper and get them to sort of jot down their ideas, and if you can work with those 3 tables, I'll do the other team. In terms of planning, either I write things down on the little yellow sheet that you might have seen Chris clutching, or we talk things through, and the planning sort of emerges through that discussion.
If you've got a child that needs graphs doing or special tables preparing, then you can prepare those before you actually go into the lesson, and that makes the lesson easier for them. They don't get behind then.
What is a stereotype? Aaron, we'll sweep, go on.
What we think people are.
What else can we say about a stereotype?
Everyone can be the same.
That everyone's the same, they're all lumped together into one group. Chris and I are quite lucky in that some of our lessons run into lunchtimes or breaks. And the 2 of us are quite happy to chat as things are packing away. And that tends to be when the pressure is on midway through a term, that tends to be when we catch up most.
Put it in a different way. She plays football, she's very sportive. Okay.
Shortish staff meeting I hope tonight. 2 main items on the agenda.
We go to all staff meetings after school, every briefing on a Tuesday morning. Anything that's going on in the school we're notified about. It's in our pigeonholes. We know exactly what's going on anywhere in the school, just the same as the normal staff are. Nobody's separated. There's not a little click for this and a little click for that.
I do genuinely believe that we know more collectively than we do individually.
Even as a teaching assistant, we have to attend full staff meetings, so you can get together with all your teachers, it's really good actually, because you feel like you're given the same amount of respect as a teacher, which I think you do need when you're working in the classroom.
The real grounding for school improvement is this conversations that happen between professionals. I think that's where we learn the most.
I actually teach a Year 8 class, so I have a teaching assistant supporting me in the classroom. So they're going to have to bring everything together there and argue their point of view in the role play. So I do have first-hand experience, and it helps to remind me sometimes how difficult it is to make sure that you've met with the teaching assistant, that they've had the yellow planning sheet, and they're fully conversant with what's going on in my lesson. Consider the 3 reasons why Henry VIII decided to dissolve the monasteries. Which reason do you think was the most important? Now, there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer. Okay, 2 minutes in your group.
Why didn't he like the Pope being the head of the Catholic Church?
He wanted them to obey him and
That's right. He wanted control, didn't he? He wanted control. Teachers will give us a lesson outline, which will tell us basically what they're going to be covering during that lesson, so that we're not going into lessons cold. And then if there are any resources that we need, that we feel that we need to compile, then we'll compile the resources.
Okay, see what you can do. Really impressed. If you've got 30 students in a class, it's quite difficult to assess how each student is performing, whereas the teaching assistant can provide valuable evidence there of how they've coped with a particular task. So you are going to have to think on your feet. Okay. Welcome to everybody to our learning support meeting. Any apologies? The teaching assistants and myself meet every Wednesday after school to plan for the following week. The performance management is well underway. I think I've only got a couple of people now to see from the teaching assistants, and it's an opportunity for me to give out any information about courses, or individual students, meeting with parents, the external agency meetings that are likely to take place over the next week that they need to be informed of. And it's also an opportunity for them to discuss with me any concerns they may have. And it's just a general debrief session, really.
There's 3 different aspects of Asperger's children. Social communication they have difficulty with, social interaction and social imagination. And there's a whole range of examples in here. Just strange things like cry your eyes out. That would really freak some of the kids out. They would really think that their eyes were going to come out if they were crying.
It's quite a close-knit group. Anytime you've got a problem, there'll be at least 1 or 2 people you can go straight to and say, can you help me with this? And because I'm only recently started the job, it's nice because, I feel like I can rely on some of the people who've been here for years.
Make sure that worksheets aren't cluttered.
It's very difficult to keep in with everybody all the time and catch up. So what we tend to do is we have a little staff room where we go into dump our bags of the morning, chat to people there. But I find that what I do is I go round and if it was ever in breakfast club and I come in the morning, I just put my head round and say, you all right, is everything okay?
Some teachers actually do make a point of coming and talking to me and say, even if they've given me a sheet to say what we'd be doing, they say, right, this is what we're covering and this is the way that I'm going to do it. So I find it very helpful to chat to the teachers, and I will make a point of doing that if there's something that I've not covered before and that I'm not certain about.
How do you want me to hold it? You want me to hold that onto the ramp? Yeah. Okay, no problem.
One of the interesting issues when you've got those extra people into classrooms is you begin to get much more information coming back from the students about their views of teaching and learning, and you're able to really bring that information back into the cycle of school improvement.
I'm usually here till 4:30, 5 o'clock because I like to get my records in order while it's all still fresh in my mind. I find if I leave it a day or two, I'm then struggling to remember. I make notes during the lessons, but then I find that I'm struggling to think what I meant by the note that I made. So I like to sit at the end of the day, make any notes that need to be made, get the records up to date, and make sure really I've got everything clear from that day. And any resources that I need as well. If I've got to create my own resources, is to get on the computer and create my own resources.
If you get a problem, there's usually somebody in a school like this that's done it, been there, knows what to do next, and somebody can put you in the right direction of finding that person.
I think it is a very tough job. They have to have very specific skills. And one of those is that they need to be flexible because they just don't know what situations they're going to face during the day. With the whole inclusion agenda, the role of learning support is going to increase within schools. The number of teaching assistants will steadily increase.